So sometimes we would critique it to my recollection anyway, so I think it would be good if we did.
It gives us also a better sense when we come back about the need for extensions and so on, even in the chamber, as to what responses and things we're getting back.
Any alternatives to that? Are you guys happy then that that's the approach we take? Would look to getting it prepped, but for a response time of mid-October then?
Chair, and putting it out
Put out as soon as, yeah, so it could be
okay.
a slightly longer consultation period than because we have that time.
No problem, Chair. Right, next week we'll bring draft questions for the citizens' space and the press adverts and things that you need to agree for. Okay.
Thank you. So agenda item 4 is the minutes of the meeting on the 19th of June. Refer to pages 7 to 20 of the pack for the draft minutes in the meeting. So if you're content, members, with the minutes, please say so. If not, let me know. If you are content, I'll sign them and we'll publish them on the website. Everybody content with the minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you, members. Agenda item 5 is matters arising. Refer to pages 22 to 24 of the pack to the response from the Department dated the 18th of June regarding Outer Belfast Loch Marine Conservation Zone. As you will recall, we considered correspondence from the Northern Ireland Marine Task Force at our meeting on the 5th of June and agreed to forward the correspondence to the Department requested considers appropriate action to protect the zone. The response states that the Department has been engaging with stakeholders, including the Marine Task Force and with commercial shipping agents to discuss the issue and to the development of a bylaw to prohibit anchorage or anchoring in the zone, and there will be a public consultation later this year on that matter. The proposed bylaw will affect international vessels that are waiting to enter Belfast Harbour, and therefore consideration needs to be given to international maritime law and relevant duties under the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas. The Department will provide updates to the Committee in advance of the public consultation and at each subsequent stage in the bylaw making procedure. Are you content to note, or have you any comments to make or not? Content to note, thank you guys. I refer you, for the next item I refer to pages 26 27 of the pack to the response from the Department dated the 23rd of June regarding the A5 Western Transport Corridor and the scheme and also the single forward payment. As you will recall, following our joint concurrent meeting with the Committee for Infrastructure on the 3rd of June and our meeting on the 5th of June, we agreed to write to the Department with a number of queries. DAERA's response is that DFI has provided DAERA with the outline maps of the A5 route, enabling overlay into DAERA's farm maps and identify the fields impacted. However, as permanent fencing has not yet been completed, no over declaration penalties will apply to the impacted land until DAERA is able to determine the accurate areas. DAERA also states that it is not yet in a position to provide the exact area of vested land for the A5. However, officials did meet and provide technical assistance to a number of farmers seeking help with their 2025 claims. The response also states that in the A6 example, as the eligible land vested qualified for force majeure, no reductions were necessary. But members, as you are aware, the High Court ruling on Monday will no doubt further exacerbate the state of limbo felt by those farmers and their families affected by the scheme, and now they face yet further delay. The Minister for Infrastructure is briefing that committee next week, so I would propose we request that any briefing materials are then shared with this committee, and I presume that the session will be covered by Hansard. Members, that's a very small action off the back of what I've just read out. Firstly, are you content that we share this response that we receive with the Committee for Infrastructure and the UFU? Yeah. Okay. Are there any other further comments in regard to this at this stage, members?
Well, I think, Chairman, now that the vesting is being rescinded according to the Minister in the House on Tuesday. We need to be clear in our minds as to what support the Minister for Agriculture now is going to be given to these farmers. There's a lot of land that's been dug up, has been somewhat left unrecognisable. And again, we need to know what support the Agriculture Minister is going to be given to these farmers for the restoration of this land again. Now, I know that a good bit of that lies with the Department for Infrastructure. But at the same time, I think that the DAERA Minister and Department, I think there's some input that they have there as well. So obviously, two departments need to be working together on this again to see what can be done for the restoration again of this particular land. Because if it's going to be, the vesting is going to be lifted, it's going to be going back to the landowner again. But gosh, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Well, there's a couple of things on that, just because I still haven't got my head around some of it. So the first thing is that off the back of our concurrent meetings with the Committee for Infrastructure, it was evident that there hadn't been any significant level of cross-departmental work on this over the project. This is obviously before this has happened, so that was evident. What struck me was the Minister did respond to say that the land that had been vested would be returned, but the Minister also said that the A5 is still going to go ahead. So one of the concerns that I also have is that if land that has been vested is returned and then revested, like what sort of a hokey pokey, like it's not even it's terrible, because there are families there that have been seriously affected, tragically, and a lot of people want the road and everybody wants the improvement, but if the best that the departments and government can do is like one leg in, one leg out, one leg in, one leg out, without being firm on this, and I think it goes back, genuinely think it goes back to the lack of interdepartment work and awareness of the impacts, and the lack of learning from previous. Did you want to come in there? I hadn't looked at yourself, and then Michelle, do you want to come in?
Well, listen, I can't overstate the huge level of disappointment, especially amongst the families who've lost loved ones on the road. And this, literally, the serial objecting for the last over a decade was actually causing this. Just a serial objecting and using environmental legislation to carry out these objections, which is blocking. That's what's causing this hokey cokey that you're talking about, and the huge amount of pain this is causing families. So I know that I was in the court whenever the judgment happened to Aidan, and it was a terrible blow, and I can't imagine what it would feel like for the families. But I do, from listening to the Minister, they are going through the judgment with their legal people as well. So important to sort of also await the outcome of what the department's saying as well when they go through that judgment.
On that point is that I think that's absolutely fair, Declan, because the judgment is lengthy. The judgment indicates that the Department for Infrastructure did not provide the relevant information in regard to the climate legislation, and that they may still do that. They may still choose to do that. But what I couldn't understand is that, as a bit, I suppose that Tom says that the Minister indicated that the land would be returned, and I'm not sure as to how accurate that is. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure that would be the process that they will follow if the Department of Infrastructure actually do provide some certainty around, the credentials and around the Climate Act. So I think we do need to get to the bottom of that, I suppose. Michelle?
Yeah, just a comment with regards to that. I think that the DFI were actually quite arrogant in dismissing the courts and the fact that this was a further JR and they had been unsuccessful in the past, and that they probably should have held back before doing the extensive work and preparatory work that they've done, because I understand that there are essentially service roads have now been built in and around the area. If we are to follow from what the Minister said in her response to questions earlier in the week, the vesting orders have been quashed as a consequence of the judgment, which should mean then obviously the land then goes back into the ownership of the original landowner. That has an immediate effect on obviously sort of payment schemes and so on as well. So I suppose really from our perspective, we would need to find out from the department whether or not any amendment to applications can be made in order to allow for land to be considered. Now obviously it may not be in a state that can be used for agricultural purposes, and that becomes another issue in relation to any compensation that may be required for them to get from DFI. But this is obviously hugely complex, but at the same time I think there needs to be information sent immediately from DAERA to those landowners who are affected, for them to understand what the current circumstances are around future payments and what actions they need to take, and within what timescale they need to do that.
That's certainly the readout from the Minister and the judgment so far, and I think this is where the departments are going to have to absolutely collaborate, because the uncertainty that has existed is now it's magnified, I think, and so they need that further information. William?
Yes, I think it's very unfair for the farmers. The land was vested. no compensation, no agreement on valuations, nothing. Weren't allowed to claim the land for a single basic farm payment this year, and now we're in the dilemma. The farmer has been wronged in this all, so I think we need clear guidance from the department of what they're going to do, and the minister to. Like this, some farms have lost sizable amounts of ground, so they couldn't claim that on their basic farm payment, even though they had got no compensation, or not even a valuation. So I think we'll need some clear direction.
I just want to let the clerk catch up here because there's a number of issues there. So, so initially I would agree that we were going to share the information that we got with the Committee for Infrastructure and UFU, and I imagine that one of the things that we are going to have to do from both perspectives here, because we need to see those improvements, we also need to see the restoration and fairness for farmers there, and a clear pathway. And that collaboration is going to need to happen between the two departments, which was so evidently missing previously.
I think it's absolutely appalling that there wasn't collaboration, and it's not as though this hasn't been raised on numerous occasions within this committee. Yep. At a very late stage, actually, because this has been going on for quite some time, as we all know. But even at a late stage, there wasn't those discussions.
Clerk, could you give us just a wee recap just there of what has been suggested as further action?
Yes, we alluded to, yes, we share the correspondence with the Committee for Infrastructure. And we also ask that they share the papers, etc., that they get from their briefing next week with us.
Yeah.
And then, presuming you wish to write to...
Well, I suppose it's the points that Tom, William and Michelle made in regard to the full understanding and the departmental readout of the judgment and what steps they're going to take to rectify the payments and the land and the restoration, if and so it's required. Obviously, this is subject to the review of the full judgment by all concerned. This is the Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs Committee, so that'll be, yes.
Just finally, it's vital that the department contact those farmers who are affected and communicate with them very clearly as to what steps and actions they need to take.
Yeah, and that was evidence in the session that we had from the farmer who came up in part of that representation to explain what that's been like.
That's
okay.
Fine. Yeah, I have it.
Okay, members.
Yeah, and it's quite likely when this land goes back to the farmer, that the farmer will not be allowed to claim it for single farm payment again until it's fully restored again. And that's the problem. That's where the difficulty lies. So, there needs to be some discussion around that as to will there be some flexibility in allowing the farmer to claim the land even if it's not fully restored, because that's going to take some time to do that.
Yeah, it would occur to me that there's significant issues at hand that outside the control of the farmer that has led to this, so therefore it would be probably force majeure or something like that, if it's applicable. Okay, thank you, members. Okay, agenda item 6 then has been taken off the papers. That was to be the briefing from the department on the 3rd Cycle River Basin Management Plan. So it's been postponed. We're now moving on to agenda item 7, which is the departmental oral evidence session from the Forest Service on the business plan and post-storm Eowyn review. So members, I'm going to refer you to the briefing paper starting at page 102 of the pack. Also refer you to a copy of the plan starting at page 106 of the pack. I'm now going to welcome the following officials to the meeting and invite them to brief the committee. We have Mr. John Joe O'Boyle, the Chief Executive of Forestry Service, and Mr. John Joe Cassidy, Head of Forest Management and Inspection Forest Service. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance, and if you would like to brief the committee, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair, members of the committee, like thank you for the opportunity to present the Forest Service Business Plan 25-26 and the post-storm Eowyn review to the committee. Forest Service and forestry delivers forestry and plant health functions on behalf of the department and operates as an agency since the 1st of April 1998. So we take on the role of delivering those functions that are in the business plan and clearing up of the storm Eowyn issue there. In our plan, we have an income generating, you'll see that in the plan, we have an income generating potential, and also we hold some reserves there based on our classification as a non-financial public corporation, and that is the basis on which we are able to take forward the plan that we have presented in the papers. We have we operate a multidisciplinary workforce, just less than 200 people, from forestry, agriculture, industrial and administrative disciplines. So that's just a wee bit on the background side. In terms of the business plan, just take the opportunity to provide an overview of the business plan for the forthcoming financial year. You'll have an opportunity to see from your briefing papers a bit more detail in the plan. So I'll give a quick overview. Business plan was approved by the Minister on the 16th of June. It will deliver a programme of forestry and plant health activities which contribute to delivering the agency's key responsibilities, including creating forests and managing sustainable and resilient forests in the course of the 25-26 plan. They will align with the Northern Ireland Executive Programme for Government, or plan Doing What Matters Most, and contribute to DAERA Corporate Plan 25 to 27 and the DAERA's lead role in managing the climate change agenda. The performance targets that we have in the plan carefully considered against how best the outcomes can be delivered against those priorities, and also within the resources that we can assign to that. The plan proposes 11 targets, 6 of which reflect key performance targets as it delivers directly against ministerial priorities. Targets in the plan contribute to the Northern Ireland priority climate actions through creating new woodland and supporting future forestry grant schemes, as well as carrying out peatland restoration and assessing the potential for renewable energy generation within the forest estate. The agency, over the plan, the agency will continue to provide environmental, economic, social and health and wellbeing benefits, ensuring that the Department's forests provide access to outdoor space, recreational activities for Northern Ireland citizens, and in addition to supplying commercial timber to the wood processing sector and supporting economic growth. The plan also contains targets relating to plant health activities. The implementation of effective plant health legislation and official controls as required under the Windsor Framework falls within the responsibility of the Secretary of State. That work and other work relating to protecting Northern Ireland's high plant health status and the environment remains at the core of Forest Services work. The targets ensure that the official controls continue to be undertaken, as well as completing draft legislation to consolidate a regulatory framework. I mentioned staff earlier a little bit. The targets also include additional work that we're taking on as an agency in order to strengthen our capability and capacity in order to take on new and emerging work coming our way from as a result of work around the climate change agenda and indeed things like the renewable energy, supporting the renewable energy issue as well. So we have a couple of targets in the plan that are specifically related to increasing our capacity and also making sure that we can bring on the correct level of professional and technical support that we need to deliver on plans for the future. I can pause there, or I can move on and deal with the Storm Eowyn.
If you want to crack on and take that as well, please.
That's fine. So I'll move on then, a review of the Storm Eowyn. You're already aware that Friday the 24th, 25 there, Storm Eowyn caused significant damage to trees and forests across Northern Ireland. As a result of Storm Eowyn and recent storms, around 4,000 hectares of woodland not already scheduled for harvesting now requires to be cleared and replanted as a result of that storm. Information on the extent of the storm damage was gathered initially and quickly using a whole combination of digital satellite data, aerial surveys, on-the-ground inspections by Forest Service staff, and indeed in the immediate aftermath of the storm, we also received very helpful and useful information and details from members of the public, councils, neighbouring landowners, government agencies and other public bodies in order to give us a scale of the damage that we were dealing with. Forest Service staff and their contractors work with both DFI Roads and NIE in clearing trees from the public road network and utility infrastructure, and prioritise clearances to residences, to people's property, business premises, etc., and commenced restoring public access to woodlands, all in the very immediate aftermath of the storm. Initially, the works involved minimum clearances to access roads and premises to facilitate NIE's work, for example, to restore the electricity networks. But then, of course, follow-up operations were needed to provide more substantial clearances that were required for the longer term. So that work we were going back on that. Forest Service has been continually engaged in this follow-up work since the storm, right until the present, and it remains ongoing. We also focused on clearing access, then public access to forest recreation areas, which was incrementally restored during the February and March, with access availability to all forests by early April. The work was completed in conjunction with the local councils, some of who manage facilities in our forests, and are in some cases the lead recreational provider for services from forests. Some recreational provision still remains partially closed due to extensive storm damage on trees and public safety concerns, including certain sections of trails in Dava, Rostrevor, Castlewellan and Gortin. However, most of the trails, most of the access to the forest is being, and to all forests is available to people, but not in every corner of the forest at this stage. Forest Service had deployed and still has a full direct harvesting resource to the tree clearance work. Timber customers, contractors who work for the timber customers and contractors who work through the Forest Service and other specialist contractors are all involved in clearing the tree clearance works, prioritised in the public interest. All Forest Service management plans have also had to be reviewed to accommodate both the bringing forward and harvesting of trees that weren't scheduled for sale at this time. So the plans have to change to bring that all forward, and also to defer and park the previously scheduled sales of timber and harvesting operations. So all of that review has all been going on right from that time, and is still going on at this stage. And of course, the plans are required and the operations are required to continue to meet the UK forestry standards as we make the adjustments in relation to the storm damage. So significant harvesting operations, some people will be already aware in the local areas, have already been undertaken and remain ongoing in the very worst affected areas, and these include forests that you will be familiar with in Ballysal and Mount Stewart, Gosford Forest, Dromana Forest, Favour Royal Forest, in East Fermanagh, Loch Navarre Forest, Gortnamoya, Kesh, Springwell and Grange Park, and there's damage in many forests. These are ones that are significantly affected. The re-establishment of the woodlands following the storm and the tree clearance operations will follow along behind the clearance, and there are opportunities in there. It's not all doom and gloom. There are a lot of opportunities in there to regenerate the forests that have been blown down with perhaps a greater diversity of tree species than originally was there, including native trees. There's also opportunities to regenerate some of those areas through natural regeneration as well, and where appropriate then supplementary planting to fill in areas that don't actually regenerate with native species, for example. So there's opportunities in there. It's brought forward the opportunity to change in effect, the landscape and the around the forests that have been blown down. And that's all part of the planning point that I made just previously there. And it's also consistent with the longer term objectives and providing opportunities to increase that diversity of species, the forest resilience across the Department's estate, increasing the range of species, increasing the diversity of these species across our forests is a key issue in terms of the adaptation to forthcoming climate change issues, and the resilience to tree diseases that may find themselves more easily to establish in a different climate change situation, so that more diversity of forests that we have, and the more diversity of those species, the better we are prepared for those kind of events. So back to the clearance of the areas adjacent to the utility infrastructure. Will be established re-established in line with best practice, and which include provision for increasing setback distances of conifer crops and opportunities to introduce smaller stature broadleaf trees to mitigate against risks of future outage due to trees being blown down in the storm. So really what I'm saying there is that where we've had to clear trees and are clearing trees close to power lines, we can re-establish the trees in and around that with different types of trees that don't grow as high and are more resilient to perhaps storm damage in the future. We administer woodland grant schemes which provide grant aid for replanting woodlands following felling as well, including those that need to be cleared due to storm damage. So there is a grant support for private woodlands that have been affected by storm damage there. The impact of storm damage across the forest estate has understandably attracted a very high level of public and media interest. And Minister Muir has visited Mount Stewart, Kilmarnock Forests, and indeed seen other forests as part of other visits. To look at the scale of the damage and to appreciate the scale of the damage and the nature of the clearance works involved going forward. In addition to that, the departmental board members visited Fermanagh a number of weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, as part of their board meeting, and undertook a visit to Favourite Royal Forest, also to see damage and to see clearance operations ongoing there. And that's me as far as a presentation of the business plan on Stormone, Chair.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
I've been looking forward to meeting you, John, because when I took the handover from the last chair and then had different briefings from people, your name came up a number of times. So I was looking forward to meeting you. So I was told that it would be. My apologies if I haven't reached in.
Oh, that's okay.
I was told to. So it's an area that I'm very interested in. I've tabled a number of questions over a period of time there, probably from before Stormy Eowyn, just trying to monitor not the department's ambition for planting trees, because I think the ambition's fine, but the rate at which planting is actually happening, and to see if the rate of planting matches the prescribed ambition. And I've received some answers, and it looks okay, but I'm not so sure it's the rate of planting is matching the ambition. And then, given the scale of the destruction that was caused by the storm, have those figures for planting been adjusted to take into consideration the restoration of the damage and not minus it off the previous departmental ambition that existed?
Aye. Okay, there's a couple of points in there. If we take the ambitions to plant more trees, to plant more have more woodlands in Northern Ireland, for an example, that's very much about planting new land, planting land that's not already in woodland, and those ambitions, those targets that we are set in the plan at 600 hectares for this year. We had a target of 600 hectares last year, which we didn't quite meet, so we fall short of that last year. We've a similar target this year. Those targets are actually set in line with the draft climate action plan at this point in time. But also, looking forward, your point about possibly longer term objectives. Looking forward, it's clear that the rate of planting that we're currently achieving, even at 600 hectares, is set to increase much higher than that in subsequent climate action plan periods, budget periods. So the two targets that we have in our business plan this year, one is about doing the necessary work to strive to achieve the 600 hectares in the plan, and a second target in there which is about preparing for a further increase then in future years to come. In relation to the storm damage trees, the areas, the figures about the number of trees we plant, etc., don't actually include. They don't actually include the replanting of areas that are felled, because that's about managing a sustainable forest. So where trees are removed from the forest, they're going to be replanted there. It almost goes without saying, if they're going to be managed sustainably, they're going. So they will be in addition to anything we plant in the forest that's been damaged. Will be in addition to the new woodland that we're trying to create.
So it's a separate measurement. It's not used in the carbon target. Really,
it's not, no, because they're actually replacing trees that were already there. Yeah, so it's
fiscal one over here, and over here is the carbon budget. So the gap then. So just for clarity, the missing the target last year will be added on to future targets to ensure that we get to that point. It's not just
we still aim to get to a certain point by 2030.
Yeah.
So the shortfall on last year will have to be picked up between now and 2030. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The Forest Service recently conducted a wind energy market engagement exercise to assess the commercial appetite for the development of renewables and Forest Service land. Can you tell us what the next steps are and what the timeline might look like in terms of achieving something like that for renewable development on Forest Service land?
Yeah. We've received useful information back from the market engagement exercise, and we're analysing that at the minute. It points to certain forests that perhaps are, I suppose, more likely to be sites that can be developed for renewable energy when you take into account all the wider things like where the grid connections are, things like that there. So some forests are more likely than others in that regard, and more likely in a different time scale than others potentially. So that's the sort of information we've got back from the market engagement exercise that we ran. The step that's ongoing at the minute is that we're analysing that against our sustainable forestry management obligations. We obviously have to make sure that the forest remains sustainably managed. So we're analysing that information that we received back from the engagement exercise against the sustainable management issue. And when we get that completed, then I suppose the next steps beyond that are then looking towards business case issues in terms of the difference between removing some trees to accommodate wind turbines in forest. So as a business case issue, and that will inform then a go-to-market, a formal go-to-market for to the wind energy when we have that analysis completed. In terms of a time frame for that, we have a target in our business plan this year that we expect to be by the 31st of March. We expect to be at a position where we're able to have the analysis done and able to commence a open market procurement at that time.
And just a final one on that then, that's an internal analysis, that's an internal departmental analysis on that report, I imagine, and then have you got the resource to do that? Is that, would you be confident that?
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, it's done within our current team, our forestry planning teams. So it's a forestry technical type analysis that needs done in terms of what age are the trees, what if we take those out, which trees do we need to leave back in lieu of that to continue to meet our obligations under the Forestry Act is to continue to manage the forest sustainably. So that comes with developing the forest for renewable energy. Okay. So we've both those things to merge.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Listen, I'm just going to take one more question and then I'm going to move out to other members. So the committee visited Peat Bogs near Roma on the 12th of June, which was only a couple of weeks ago, and we were accompanied by staff from Ulster Wildlife Trust And we heard that to restore peatland, trees often need to be removed in order for the land to become wet again. Could you outline any work that you guys have undertaken with Ulster Wildlife Trust in this regard? And I note in your papers there is a section on wetlands as well. And it was, from my perspective, it was very interesting. I mean, it was just that realisation of, we know that trees have a role to play, but also our bogs and wetlands have a significant role to play, and like the juxtaposition of cutting trees down to achieve this was an interesting concept.
We do a lot of our work with other partners. Wildlife Trust is one other partner, and obviously with very, very similar objectives in relation to peatland restoration works. I suppose similar to councils in relation to providing recreation. So we do a lot of work in that kind of partnership. And yes, we have targets here to restore peatland areas, 400 hectares in our targets this year here. And again, we some of those, yes, are trees that are crops that are being felled from and not going to be planted again. But of course, there's additional work that needs to be done there, like perhaps stump removal or stump burying and wetting the forest up again, because in terms of creating the conditions for peatland restoration, we need to wet the site more than it would be currently in a forest form. So those works are follow-on works, and they take, I suppose, they take a sequence. You know, they harvest the trees first, and then do the ground preparation work and the blocking of the drains and other things thereafter in those areas. Some areas of peatland, in the Forest Service estate, are not actually planted with trees, and there will be restoration works going on there as well, including removal of invasive species that over time would actually I suppose extend right across the peatland area and render it no longer.
We could see that up in the bog that we were on. You could see, because there's a forest across from it, which is Forest Service, I believe, and you could see that all the little saplings and just naturally. They will seed. Trees will seed out onto in a natural way, and it is important to remove those trees. When you asked about capacity in a different question there, but when we have not as many of them to remove, that's the time to do it, as opposed to when you've actually got an undesirable, perhaps woodland started there. So we do it early. Try to do it early. So we have a significant part of the work that's in this plan this year will include removal of those naturally regenerating trees out on let's say, open peatland bogs, as opposed to ones that already have a planted forest on it. But we're also taking forward work on the planted forest as well. Thank you, John. Declan.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the presentation. You mentioned, John Joe, there that the Forest Service has did a market engagement exercise, and you are looking at an open market procurement in March 2026. When do you think it would be likely that the first renewables would become operational on Forest Service land?
Yeah, I suppose that's a little bit out of my. I'm not a wind energy developer. I suppose I'm a landowner from that point of view. But I have got insights to those things because it's part of the program. But there is, and again, that's some of the information that we've got from the market engagement side, which does guide us on that. They have given us indications of, for an example, lead-in times around doing things like the bird surveys that are necessary, the environmental impact assessments, and then the procurement of the equipment and the installation. So there is a time frame. There's a lead-in time to getting some of those. In some areas, the lead-in times would be longer than others because of work that's perhaps already done. It may be that there's already, for argument's sake, hypothetically, a bird survey or bird information, if it's close enough or adjacent to existing wind farms, things like that there, and that might shorten the time frames for some of those things. So it's those kind of things that we are now including in our analysis of which sites are, I suppose, the quicker wins, I suppose, is the way to put it, and which sites are still we still want to pursue, but it might take a longer time frame. I can't give you a clear number of years on that, but starting from scratch, I know that there's a 2-year study required on birds survey before, as a starting point to inform the environmental impact assessment. And then, of course, the proposals need to go through they have to go through the planning process before there would be any sort of construction going on there. But the procurement that we're talking about here, just to be clear, on the business plan here, is very much about opening that door to the wind energy developers to know that that if they take these steps through these processes, that they have a site on offer to them, as opposed, so they need to know they have a site on offer to them, and that's what the launch of a procurement exercise is in March here. But a lot of the lead-in work will happen after that.
And Forest Service, I understand, has long-term leases with NI Water for
Yes.
some of their lands, which themselves could also be suitable for renewables. Have you been engaging with NI Water in terms of sussing that out or assessing that their potential to move forward?
Yeah, well, the market engagement exercise included those forests as well. So NI Water were quite content for ourselves to take that information from where wind energy developers have pointed to forests that are in the ownership of in the ownership of NI Water, but trees managed by ourselves on those sites, then those are still candidates for an open market exercise. But we will have to develop arrangements between ourselves and NI Water in parallel to that.
Have you been engaging with NI Water?
We have been. We have indeed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sorry, Chair, the one last thing I want to mention is your KPT on your plan, KPT 1, is to increase to 600 hectares, increasing woodland per year, and the current average is 425 hectares. I'm just thinking in terms of the farmers, I know the Farming with Nature scheme is currently open, but the small woodland grant scheme isn't open for applications. Would it be prudent to have the small woodland grant scheme open for farmers and landowners to work to try and help meet this target?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, and it'll be certainly the plan. Part of the plan will be that the small woodland grant scheme will open ahead of the planting season in the planting season coming up in the autumn here. Planting season tends to be from sort of December through to February and March, so the small woodland grant scheme will open in time for that planting season.
So it will open for 26. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Declan. And Michelle.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your presentation. And some of the questions have been answered in respect of the renewables piece of work that's been carried out. But I do understand that the market engagement exercise was carried out in 2009 and 2016. So I'm curious as to what the barriers are in order to progress this. Are they policy barriers? Are they legislative barriers? And how can those be overcome in order to move this on? Because clearly there's a massive revenue opportunity for the executive with regards to using these sites.
Sure. I suppose the things have changed between the different exercises that were done previously. We now have an energy strategy here that we wouldn't have had back in 16, for an example. So in effect, I suppose the strategic context now for developing the sites is different now, and very much. And very, very supportive of creating the renewable energy. Indeed, the cap as well is the other thing that that has brought it very much to live focus as well, and not least because of the renewable electricity targets of 80% renewables by 2030 as well. So it is very much brought it to the fore as well. So what I'm saying is things have moved on in sort of policy terms that has changed the emphasis than would have been the case back in 2014 and the earlier look-see options that we looked at that time.
Will there will there be a requirement for legislation around any aspects of this?
The Forestry Act 2010, when this department took through the Forestry Act 2010, we created a provision in there for the forests to be used for other than forestry purposes, which gives us the basis for creating so we don't need legislation to put wind farms on forest, but we do need to make sure, and that was a point I was making to Chair in relation to his question, we do need to make sure that in doing so we give due regard to the primary duty, which is managing sustainable forests. And that's where the analysis and that's where the merging of those two policy objectives comes together.
And is it too early to think about what that development will look like, as to whether that is taken forward internally, or whether it's taken in partnership with renewable developers? I suppose really it's about moving.
It is a bit early. I did refer earlier there that there's business case work to do on that. So there will be a business case to be prepared, looking at the very sort of scenarios you present. Do we do it directly? Do we do it in partnership? And the business case will look at, I suppose, relative costs around that, relative revenue returns around that, and I suppose risk and reward around that. So the business case will be a business case process to determine which way Northern Ireland government land is going to be used for that.
And just finally, Chair, if you don't mind, just in regards to the storm and obviously the devastation within Mount Stewart, which is within my own constituency, and it'd be remiss of me not to mention that. Can I just ask specifically in relation to Mount Stewart how work is progressing?
Joe, do you want to maybe pick that one up?
Yeah, work is progressing fairly well. The felling of the trees has been completed. We're now extracting the produce. We have 2 of the main areas cleared. At this point, I would expect probably another 5 to 6 weeks that the vast majority of the timber extraction will be there. Then it'll be haulage after that. So hopefully by the end of the summer, the most of the produce will have been gone from the estate.
And then just in relation then to replanting and so on, when will that commence?
We're currently liaising with and discussions with the National Trust in relation to the future use of Mount Stewart. That it will be replanted. The plans will be predominantly a broadleafed type woodland. Predominantly a broadleaf type woodland. That's direction of travel where we're at with Mount Stewart.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Patsy?
Yep. Thanks very much, and apologies for being delayed slightly there. 2 or 3 wee questions. I'm looking here at Target 1 to create 600 hectares of new woodland by the 31st of March 2026, and to bring forward proposals to the Minister for ministerial approval to support forestry grant schemes. And the target is 31st of March 2026.
Yeah.
How do you incentivise people by grant aid if the grant aid target date is the same date as that which your target for 600 hectares of new woodland is?
I suppose, thanks for the question, Patsy. I suppose, apologies if it could have been even clearer. I suppose the bring forward proposals are for a later period. They're for the next period beyond that. The proposals aren't for this plan. So the proposals are there for the.
As I'm reading it, it says create 600 hectares of new woodland by. It's just 31st of March 2026.
That's correct.
And then the grant aid period, the target for it's just 31st of March 2026 as well. I'm just trying to square that in my head, how that could happen.
Aye, but the bring forward proposal ones is proposals of how the forestry grant schemes are going to be, how the support through the forestry grant schemes are going to be in place for 26 to 32. It's for that later period.
But if your target is create 600 hectares of new woodland by 31st of March,
yes,
and you're trying to incentivise people,
yes,
how do you do that if the grant aid isn't in place?
Grant aid will be is in place. This is existing grant aid, and then what we're looking at in target 2 is different grant aid for a later period.
No, why I'm asking all this?
Apologies for the.
None of your grand. This is why I'm here. So, I hope I'm not fuzzy on it, but I don't think so.
No.
No, a number of people that I know that have planted trees previously, and some of them unfortunately planted ash, and the whole thing has just been a disaster. They've told me that they're not going to go for anything again. So my point is on that: will the grant scheme that's likely to come forward be sufficiently incentivised to encourage people to plant more trees, or is it just going to be more of the same?
No, it'll be more of the same for the 600 hectares this year, but the proposals that go to the Minister will be to look at how we can better incentivise that.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
No, that's exactly right. That is.
Oh, no, that's grand, that's okay.
No,
Now, the next one is then to supply at least 400,000 cubic metres of timber from sustainably managed DAERA forests to customers, right? Now, and there's dates and all associated with that, but it's not the dates that I'm concerned about. You have a pile of timber lying there as a result of the storm. What was it? 4,000 hectares.
Yeah.
Right. Now, so this is maybe a bit of a different way of doing things the civil service would be. If you have a pile of timber lying there that you need to get rid of, it's lying in the forest, is there not some sort of maybe a commercial aspect of this where you could say, not all of this timber will be good timber, like some of it will be, but the trees that were taken down were in many instances good trees, right? And you'll know that, you're more specialised in this knowledge than me. Is there not some sort of a commercial scheme you could say, well, right, go to somebody that uses this timber for sustainable good reasons, whatever those are, and say to them, look, save us money from having to get contractors in to tidy up the place and then try and sell it. You guys enter into a contract with yourselves and it's win-win. So has there ever been any thinking around that to do it?
Yeah, well, I suppose the fundamentally behind that, the 4,000 tonnes of timber that will be being supplied this year in the course of this business plan will largely be timber from those clearance operations. So it will be coming from those clearance. We won't be felling 400,000 tonnes of timber that is still standing in the forests.
Sorry, but I was just doing some calculations there on that. That 400,000 cubic metres. Well, if you're sitting with 4,000 hectares of trees down, you boys can do the calculations a lot better than me. And among that, probably about a third of a success rate of good quality timber should come out of that. About a third. That's my calculation anyway. So, I'm just saying, is there a better way of doing this rather than yourselves having to employ contractors to come in, tidy the place up, or indeed your own people, spend a lot of money on that, whereas where that resource could maybe be spent elsewhere, actually planting trees. And if all I'm talking about is making the best of the commercial sector, the best of the public sector, come up with a deal, and it's a win-win.
No, it's valid questions. So it is absolutely. And I suppose just to, the starting point being that the timber that we will supply this year will be timber that's already blown down, and as you rightly say, a lot of that timber is all good timber. So it'll be going to the normal timber processing facilities for processing through sawmills and all the rest. It'll be their contractors that'll likely come in and harvest that. It'll not be our work that'll do that. So I can't figure off the top of my head, probably 85% of that will be harvested by the timber customers' capacity.
Well, sorry, if I could just ask John Joe, do you have to pay them currently to do that, or is there a commercial aspect to this whereby they get the timber, they do the work, and it's not pro bono but some sort of a commercial?
Oh, there's already contracts in place where they bid for the price of the timber, which includes them actually harvesting it from the forest. So we're not paying the timber contractors to harvest this.
So you get rid of it.
We get rid of it. It obviously, if we were doing all the harvesting, we couldn't do that.
No.
Yeah. So we need their capacity. We need to bring forward that sector capacity, and that's
what I'm saying is there's a commercial benefit to the department in that.
Oh, yes, there is absolutely.
Right. That's grand. No, it's good to hear that. Just maybe if you could direct some of them in the direction of Dava and Drum Manor. It would be very helpful. I had a conversation with a few people about that just yesterday, and they were complaining about trees being down all over the place.
Yeah.
The final thing is, Chair, with your forbearance again, this is sort of where this all came from. The storm did highlight, as you know, for those of us that live in rural areas, many of the breakdowns were because breakdown in power supplies were because trees fell down. From the point of view of the department, in future tree planting schemes that you would have, can you write in a proviso there to ensure that tree planting, well, there's some of this going on in the Nutrients Action Programme, but in a different vein, that tree planting does not take place within, say, a buffer zone of say 10 metres of power lines, because that's the contributory factor of a lot of our power going off in rural areas was not of course in all forestry areas, but the contributory factor was trees falling down on lines, and not only just with the power but also with internet, broadband,
utilities,
and all that.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of aspects to that question as well, and valid stuff. I suppose what we're seeing and what we're dealing with is what was in place, the forests the way they were, with the lines already in there, etc. In terms of new planting of areas, we already will keep back a buffer zone. From that, and I was just mentioning earlier there, maybe in relation to the sort of the broader presentation, we've got opportunities in here now to, let's say, along power lines, to not plant faster growing, taller trees closer to power. We have an option to plant, let's say, smaller, lower trees. And perhaps native woodlands such as birch and other things like that won't grow high enough to even interface with power lines. So there's an opportunity to create the buffer zone, and then the trees that are closest to the to the power lines then can be a different kind of. It can actually tail off to a very low canopy type scenario, and that's part of what we build into our forest management plans here. In relation to the woodlands that are created and your question wasn't properly related to this, but in relation to woodlands that are created in the private sector, on private sector land, part of the grant schemes will require the landowner who proposes to put the grant in there to have the permission from the utility provider or the electricity supplier to make sure that they're content with how close the trees are going to that. So our grant schemes already regulate that on the ones that are being put in the private sector.
You mentioned that there was an existing buffer zone. What is it at the minute? I'm just getting nosy at this point.
Well, it depends on the category of the line. It changes. It depends on the category of the line. The most extreme is it's largely designed to. The most extreme one is the 110 kV lines.
The 110 kilovolts.
The 110 kV lines, and that is. Say 20 metres either side of the cables. The lesser lines have a lesser distance, but then they're all under a wayleave agreement with the supplier. So the wayleave agreement allows the electricity companies to prune back trees that are at risk as well.
They seem to be. Well, found out that wasn't adequate, but anyway.
Well, and I think the experience is clearly that, and I think that's very much a reflection on I suppose the severity of the storm as well. In this particular case, but going forward, I mean your point about going forward is that we do have, in terms of the planting on our own estate or the replanting on our own estate, we do have that option, and we do have that within our plans to create the buffers and to create the not only the buffers but create a different kind of edge to the forest at the power lines, both from a stability point of view as well as stability of the forest point of view as well. So you don't have a tall stark edge. You've got a tailed off edge, and that helps in terms of the wind flows.
Get on, John Joe. Thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
That's it. And William.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you're very welcome. A wee bit of the cold's from a bit hoarse.
All right.
In relation to the damage in 4,000 hectares has to be cleared and replanted, I do see at Gosford Forest Park, for instance, big area of this forest is unscathed, but there's a large area at the back totally flattened. Is there a different is the lessons to be learned about the type of tree that is more able to stand wind. It's strange that there's one big area, and I'm sure you know all about this, but it's totally flattened where the rest of the forest seems okay.
Yeah, and that's what you see across. There's an awful lot of factors come in there, William. That is, depends on the height of the trees. If they're 30 years old, they may well be able to withstand a certain degree of storm. But if they're, let's say, 40 years old, they might not, because they're taller and they catch more wind and things like that there. So there's a whole lot of factors comes into that. Also, even things like, well, it's the soil type as well. How well they can be rooted in the soil, and also other things then in terms of even weather. Although if you've got a heavy wet winter, for an example, then the soil's more sodden, and any movement in the trees then will be exaggerated, and it'll be less resistance to the trees blowing over.
The larger area that's flattened in Gosford is actually to the back of the forest, and you'd have thought it would be more sheltered.
Aye.
It still was flattened.
Yeah.
Have you got a time frame for the clearing and the replacement?
Of Gosford?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, Gosford, the work, they're actually similar to Mount Stewart. The work's ongoing. Slightly bigger scale than Mount Stewart. In Gosford, there's probably 20-25% of the area will require clearance, of 1 degree or a major degree. We expect, again, timescales in that. The end of the summer, we should be fairly well through it, because progress has been good there, and we started clearing in Gosford probably the week after the storm.
Yeah.
So we've got in. Gosford was an area where we got in fairly early, but I would expect end of the summer, September time, and then we'll be starting the regeneration of the area, replanting.
Will there be an issue attaining all the trees necessary? 4,000 hectares is a lot of trees.
It'll not be 4,000 hectares will not be replanted in the 1 year, so it'll be over a rolling period of time. We have contracts in place for tree supply, so the supply of the trees shouldn't be an issue. What may be an issue is the diversity that we may be looking, because our plans have been brought forward because of the wind damage. So we may be looking for certain traits of trees that aren't maybe available just yet, and the quantities that we require.
In relation to the forestry grant scheme, I have had several people in with me in my office this last 6 weeks. Planted trees 18-20 years ago, full of ash dieback. They were told they'd have a cash crop, now they've practically nothing. Is there any chance of any compensation or help for those people?
Where the ash trees have to be cleared out, and replanted again, there is a re-establishment grant there available to re-establish the woodlands. I suppose where there are ash trees in a woodland, along with other tree species, it might, even though the ash trees have failed, it may well still not be the right thing to do to clear the rest of the woodland out and replant it. So it depends, I suppose, on the density of the ash trees or diseased trees within the woodland, what the right solution is. But certainly at the extreme where the ash trees have to be removed, then there is a re-establishment grant available.
Is there anyone to give them advice? These people seem to be the loose end. They don't know what to do.
The forestry, we have a forestry grant scheme, a forestry grant.
Re-establishment.
What do you call it? Account, email account. So they could email the forestry grant team at.
I think some of them have done that, but they didn't get much satisfaction, I think.
I don't know.
But
I'm happy to.
I'll say this: the targets are 600 hectares. This next to 2027. Do you reckon most of that will be in public land or private land?
In 600 hectares. it'll be. I would imagine most of it'll be in public land, or sorry, on private land. But but it doesn't mean to say that that we, the Forest Service, aren't looking actively at acquiring land as well. You know, where it's important for ourselves to perhaps acquire a piece of land that perhaps joins up to forests. You know, brings a continuity in for wildlife reasons, for access reasons, for all of those sort of reasons. So we will be still looking to acquire land that is strategically valuable to acquire ourselves up to our estate, to Forest Service estate, and then the I suppose the combination of that and the private land, we will be relying on considerable amount of applications from private landowners for the planting, so we will.
And Joe, I don't want to sound too negative, but my experience from these people, there are a lot of people that have availed of the scheme in the past, not happy. Land values, as you know, in Northern Ireland, even for renting, has increased dramatically these last 3 or 4 years. So any new scheme needs to be very attractive to get people to participate.
Yeah, we are aware of that, and I mean, against the other questions here, you know, the incentive schemes that we have going forward needs to be at least able to compete with that. We understand that.
Yeah,
that'll be part of.
I think you know, you have a big task to reach those targets if you're expecting them to be done on private land.
They are challenging. Yeah, they are challenging.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, thank you very much. Thomas. Sorry, Thomas, you didn't get my eye.
Yeah, okay. You talk about the 600 hectares that you're looking planted, and yet if you look at the forestry ground where renewables are planned for, and I look at my own constituency, West Tyrone, and from recollection there's maybe 5 areas there that have been earmarked that may be suitable for this type of renewables. And then there's going to have to be quite a substantial removal of forestry trees, is there, for that to allow for a development such as that to go forward. Is any concern about that with regards to maybe in areas where trees haven't reached their full growth potential, and therefore they're going to be taken out at a much younger stage, a lot lower down, and has that any implications?
There are some implications there, absolutely, and that's where part of that analysis that I spoke about earlier. You know, what is the impact on the sustainable forestry management side that our, I suppose, our obligations are to make sure that we manage the forest estate sustainably. I suppose the one thing I would say is that with the technology that has now happened in the development of wind turbines, and they can be a less number of turbines in a woodland with higher generating capacity, so the number of trees that you would perhaps need to take away now, as opposed to 5 or 10 years ago, would be a lot less, because you would need a lot less turbines in the forest, but they would be generating more electricity. So that's a technological development within the sort of the wind energy sector. And as I say, I'm not professed to be an expert in that area, but I do know that is the case. And I suppose the other thing is then we're not considering, you know, the removal of a forest area to change it to putting wind turbines in there. It's about integrating wind turbines within, let's say, open spaces that are already in the forest, and using existing perhaps road infrastructure. Yes, it might have to be strengthened a bit or something like that there. So it will be aimed at certainly minimising any amount of tree removal, and there is scope to minimise it quite a lot, and more scope now in today's world than there would have been as I say, 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, I'm fairly much in favour of it, because it's putting it into an area where the trees and the turbines are going to sort of help to integrate them a bit rather than have them sitting on top of a mountain, if you like. It was just with regards to the clearance of the trees and that type of stuff. So, okay, Chair.
The other benefit, just the other benefit of having them in the forest area is is also the fact that, you know, the forest, it tends to be a little bit more removed from other people's properties and houses, and, you know, it's a bit more remote, so that's another benefit.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, New. Okay, members.
Very welcome.
I'm going to track on here because we have a tight enough agenda. Agenda item 8 is the Departmental Oral Evidence Session on Farm Sustainability Payments, FSP. Members are referred to the briefing paper starting on page 122 of your pack, providing details of the FSP, which forms part of the Sustainable Agriculture Programme, and will replace the current Farm Sustainability Transition Payment, as you will know, FSTP. So the going to welcome the following officials to the meeting and then ask them to brief the committee. That is Mr. George Moffett, who is the Acting Director of Agriculture Policy Division. And we have Ms. Lorna Christie, Head of Branch Farm Sustainability Development Policy Branch, and Mr. Aidan McEvoy, Head of Branch Controls and Assurance Development. Just make yourselves comfortable.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you for attending. Just to let members know, just for a very short period of time there, we lost connectivity online there. Just hopefully it's sorted and we're back up and going.
Chair Broadcasting's come back to say that they haven't seen any problems. So
All right.
back, it may just be where someone was watching.
Okay, so there was a report of an outage, but Broadcasting have said that they don't see any problems, so
They're looking into it.
looking into it. All right, because we do have viewers every week, just so you know. So you behave yourselves. Okay, thank you very much. We do have your briefing paper in the pack, but would encourage you to give us a highlight of the brief now, if that's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you and good morning everyone. And thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to present our policy proposals for the farm sustainability payment. As you mentioned earlier in your introductions, I'm joined by Lorna Christie, Head of Farm Sustainability and Development Policy Branch, and Aidan McEvoy, Head of Controls and Assurance Development Branch. You have your briefing paper, and you'll know from that the farm sustainability payment is a key element of the Sustainable Agriculture Programme. And you've previously received briefing on FSP as part of the Farm Sustainability Transitional Provisions Regulations earlier this year. By way of signalling a move to the new FSP, the Farm Sustainability Transition Payment was introduced in 2025 this year, and signalling a move away from basic payment. FSP will provide a resilience payment and will act as a balance between providing a safety net which will help a farm business withstand shocks that are beyond its ability to manage effectively, and encouraging farm businesses to become more environmentally sustainable, efficient and resilient. And it's expected to attract approximately 22,000 applications per year. FSP will operate in a similar manner to the basic payment scheme. For example, to claim FSP when it opens in 2026, a farm business will be required to submit an eligible application form by the closure window and activate 3 entitlements on 3 hectares of eligible land, or at least 3 entitlements on at least 3 hectares of eligible land. Along with the introduction of the farm sustainability payment, there are a number of elements being included within it. Those are the implementation of the historic years exercise, introduction of progressive capping, new land eligibility rules, farm sustainability standards to replace cross-compliance, and the introduction of conditionalities. And again, you have details on each of those in your written briefing, but just to give you a short overview of each one. The historic years exercise aims to help ensure that FSP is directed towards those farm businesses undertaking agricultural activity. The exercise requires farm businesses in operation prior to 1st of January 2022 to have undertaken at least one of the defined list of activities that are included in the legislation during the period 2020 and/or 2021. And legislative cover to implement the historic years is included in the Farm Sustainability Transitional Provision Regulations, which were laid earlier this year. On progressive capping, currently under FSTP, payments are capped at 190,000. However, for FSP, it is planned that progressive capping of payments will be introduced over a 2-year period, with capping levels increasing in stages based on the size of payment. And again, you've got worked examples in your written pack on how that will apply. New land eligibility rules will come in, and really the objective there is to establish rules for FSP that complement the scheme's objective and can be easily understood and controlled. The farm sustainability standards replace cross-compliance and come in together with a revised penalty matrix. Again, you've had a couple of briefings on this from our officials, and along with worked examples, but again we can pick up any questions on those later on. And then included within FSP is the proposal to introduce conditionalities. These are there to encourage uptake and participation by farm businesses in 3 data platforms within the Sustainable Agriculture Programme: the Soil Nutrient Health Scheme, Bovine Genetics Project and the Carbon Footprinting Project. To meet these conditionalities, farm businesses will be required to register for the projects and complete training when it's offered. And again, the briefing contains details of those conditionalities along with a timeline for their introduction. An affirmative statutory rule is required to provide the Department with the legal powers to implement FSP and the various elements that I have outlined. And really, in terms of bringing that legislation forward, we really want here today to give you the overview of FSP and then follow that in the September-October time with the SL1 to progress the legislation through the Assembly. A negative SR is also required to provide the Department with legal powers to implement the new farm sustainability standards, and again that will come forward in the autumn. In closing, Mr Chairman, it's recognised that the investment the Executive making in SFP is considerable, and in receiving that investment, farm businesses through the various actions within the scheme will be making substantial improvements to environmental and addressing of climate change challenges. Chairman, that's a short briefing, and happy now to open to questions.
Thank you so much. And I know there's a lot of work has went on in this, and we have heard some of the detail previously. One of the things that strikes me is in terms of the and you did allude to it, was in the first instance that there are around 1,900 farm business may be impacted by the historic years exercise, but I can't see the analysis of the type of farm that alludes to. My brain goes to a small farm possibly, but there's no detail to suggest that. Is there a mix of sizes, or is it predominantly in that aspect? Will it be the smaller farm that is potentially precluded?
Yeah, no, there's a mix of sizes. So essentially, the historic years is based on activity on the farm business. So again, within the regulations, there are a number of activities set out that farm businesses need to meet to be eligible. So we've looked through NIFAS data, we've looked through SAF data, and businesses in that historic reference period, for example, with no cattle or sheep showing, no poultry, no pigs, crops or arable crops, those are the businesses that are impacted. So those are the 1,900 that are not showing any of those defined activities.
It's also stated in the briefing paper that a balance needs to be struck between providing a safety net, which helps a farm business withstand shocks, but not so large that it reduces the incentive to be efficient, to be competitive, and to manage risk proactively. What evidence have you gathered that would lead you to believe that farm businesses are not managing their own risk? And I picked that out probably in the bit where it's saying there's around 295. It's probably in the next stage. There's 295 farms that are probably potentially going to be effective. Is there any evidence to suggest that this will work to make them more robust and proactive?
It's more probably fair to say, Chair, that we've looked right across the board at all farm businesses. They are managing risk, but there are those where receipt of the payment can distort their development and opportunity to maybe take on more innovation, grow their business better, and rely more on the payment. So it's to try and get that balance going forward.
This was a win, and the department did change from us, because obviously one of the previous proposals was to have a 5 hectare limit, which is now reduced to 3. Was there any quantification done of the amount of farms that would have impacted? I know it's not going to impact. However, it was there as an option. Was there an analysis done on that?
There's analysis done, and we published some of that at the time of the consultation back in 2020 back in 21-22. But really, since that, just from the consultation itself, further communication with stakeholders, Minister decided to hold the limit at 3 hectares.
Okay. As a comment, and you don't have to comment on this, but obviously we liaise with farmers quite regularly. Given the other pressures that farms and family farms are under in Northern Ireland, whether it's the family farm tax, the NAP proposals, or the climate action plan programme that has recently come out, there's a growing sense that they're being pressed on all sides, and some of this will feel, I think, like a pressure to some of the farmers. Is there a risk, I suppose I'm asking a question, is there a risk that even with some incentive that some farmers may decide to walk away from a scheme such as this, and therefore we reduce the ambition for making climate, because it seems to be that at every quarter farmers are finding the same kind of pressures on them.
And from the SAP itself, and really why we're bringing forward the SAP, is to try and develop that sustainable enterprise. The schemes within it are voluntary, and really it is down to individual farm business choice, but we want to try and make the schemes as attractive as possible to be as easy to apply to. Yes, there are some more controls built around it and some new requirements within it, but really our sense is that farm businesses can apply with those and comply with those, and the benefit will be in the long term around the development of the business.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you, and Deputy Chair Declan.
Thank you, and thanks very much for your presentation. You mentioned there though that one of the good things here is that we have ring fenced the budget to see on the 29 million, so that at least gives a wee bit of certainty in a very uncertain climate for agriculture and rural communities. But I suppose the question I want to ask is, farmers obviously are going through this transition period now, and they want to know, will their entitlement rate remain the same? Will there be a minimum floor? Because if there isn't a minimum floor for them to be able to, for them, it leaves it very, very difficult for them to plan ahead, be innovative and make decisions.
And Declan, we're very much, I suppose, in the early stages of bringing forward the schemes within the SAP. There's been some redirection of budget to fund the beef sustainability package, and that has impacted the entitlement values. Minister has said that over time, as the schemes come on board within the SAP, more of the budget will move to support that. As we work to see what that budget will be, we'll be looking at what that sweet spot is, for want of a better word, but that's work we still have to take forward.
Is this something that will be coming forward in the SL1 when we're looking at this, in terms of giving that minimum floor security for our farmers?
Not as part of this SL1, because essentially it's just bringing in FSP, but it's work we would be taking forward in the policy space going forward.
Okay, thank you. And one of the conditionalities you mentioned there was the genetics scheme. Now, we've been looking at this in the south of Ireland as well, because obviously we operate across the island and we're dealing with my counterpart down there as well. And we've noted that there has been issues down south experienced by farmers in terms of rigid reference years, strict genotyping targets and penalties that hit particularly the smallest farmers. For example, if there's herd changes that happened, for example, for illnesses and other things beyond their control. So what is the scheme? What shape is the scheme going to be taken here? Because there's the inflexible rules down south has resulted in farmers losing payments, has caused problems.
Yeah, and the scheme up here is very much, looked at the scheme in the south, and the provider that has been appointed to help deliver the bovine genetics is the ICBF, which works across, or will be working across the island here. There is a number of points and a number of elements of it still to be developed, but the plan is that certainly it'll be available to all breeding herds, and to build the database, genotypes and DNA analysis of cows and bulls and young stock is needed. And so within the scheme itself, there's proposals brought forward or being brought forward to how that will be delivered. But the aim again is to try and make it as simple and as accessible for farm businesses, and to avoid some of the challenges that have occurred in the south. I know officials working on that particular scheme plan to come forward in September with a fuller briefing on bovine genetics, and hopefully that will give a greater flavour of what's included.
Yeah, because the scheme that obviously we've implemented here needs to look at the learning from down south
So.
and the impact it has, particularly on smaller farmers. And one of the other things, just as we follow on from that, is that some of the concerns that have been raised by farmers down the south is about private companies controlling genetic data, and they need control over their herd genetic data. Will there be guarantees here that that will the case that won't be shared with third parties without clear consent and oversight of the farmers?
Yeah, again, for all the data platforms in the SAF, there are privacy notices either in place or being developed, which will set out exactly what the data collected will be used for and who it will be shared for. And if there's requests for data outside of what's in those privacy notices, then that can only be given with consent of the farmer. So there's good, tight requirements built in there.
That's great. Thank you, George. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Declan. Michelle?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation this morning. Can I just ask from the outset, is this still policy and development, or are these the final proposals?
The final proposals at this stage, but obviously we still have to bring them through the legislative process. And I suppose why we're bringing forward now is to give that time for consideration as we bring it forward then in September.
Okay. There's part of that probably does concern me a little bit in so much as what we have here today. A bit concerned in relation to the comments with regards to what the Chair said around the capping. It nearly sounded to me as if you felt that you were doing farmers a favour by reducing their payments, because by doing that actually you're going to incentivise them to be more innovative and so on and so forth. But essentially, you've also said within the paper that large farms can receive very large amounts of direct payments, which arguably are not justified, and these farms can obviously utilise economies of scale. So I suppose I would contend that in many respects, it's large farms who have probably have a greater risk, in so much that they're full time, they don't have other incomes coming to the farm business. They'll also employ numbers of people. They'll also be very much susceptible to having larger debts, so therefore as a consequence of interest rate rises, changes in prices and so on, that there is a greater risk. So I'm not really sure where the thinking is around that, in that you're essentially giving them a protection.
Yeah, and it was something we consulted on back in 21-22, and certainly the strong response coming through that was that the proposals outlined at that time were the right way to go. And again, while the progressive capping is there, there's a lot of other support provided for those businesses through SAP, through knowledge interventions, through investment schemes and so on, that give them the opportunity then to further develop their businesses and grow and be sustainable.
Then I suppose then going alongside that then of course are the conditionalities which you've outlined in the paper, and I suppose in some ways there could be issues with some of that in regards to accessibility, particularly maybe in around completing training. There'll be farms, maybe smaller farms, who and there won't be the capacity within the farm business in order to be able to do some of the work that you're asking them to do.
Yeah, and you note from the paper that for the conditionalities there's really two elements to it, as you've mentioned, Michelle. There's the participation in the scheme itself, so be it getting the soil analysis, getting the results, and that information will be provided to farmers. The second part is the training, and I think that's maybe the point you're picking on. Certainly the training is being developed by CAFRE, and we're cognizant that it needs to be accessible and understandable by everybody across the board, and that's being taken into account in the development of the training. It's available in a number of formats, so primarily online, but face-to-face is there for those who prefer that route. But I suppose the key thing is it's not being developed to be arduous or onerous. It's short videos, maybe no more than an hour, which can be dipped in and out on, and where people have queries or questions afterwards, they can either follow that up through CAFRE. So we're hoping that farm businesses will find this easy to get on board with and be easy to follow.
And just in terms of the genetics project, obviously this is something that's been driven by industry for a long period of time, even during my time, which was a very long time ago. But the project isn't yet up and running. Is it fair to include it at this point as a conditional?
It's up and running from the point of view that the service provider is appointed to build a database of genetic information, and that database can only be built by getting the genetic data from the animals. So later this year, the first benchmark reports are hoping to come out and then to be available for farmers. But really, the timescale for introduction, while we're signalling that farmers and registration will be open from next year, the timescale to get the registration done and the training is through to 28, so there's a bit of a lead-in time there, but it's really signalling the intention going forward.
Is industry in agreement?
We're working through that with industry across the board. It's fair to say there's mixed views, and it's something we still have to fully bottom out with them. Okay,
and just with regards to then the carbon footprint project, I understand there might have been some issues with tender, and where are you in securing someone to deliver that? Yeah, so
for the carbon footprinting project, it's a three-way delivery. There's ourselves in the department, there's the LMC as the delivery partner on the ground to collect the data, and then the third key element is the carbon calculator. We did go out to tender last year for a calculator. We had a legal challenge, and as a result of that, the tender was terminated. But we're committed to it, the Minister's committed to it, and we're reinitiating another tender now to go out shortly.
Okay, thank you. And just very finally, the very last question. You may have missed the discussion at the start of our committee, and obviously you're the right people, I think, maybe in place with regards to the payments for those who were affected by the A5, and obviously the mess that's been created as a consequence of what's happened in the last week. Have you any information at this stage with regards to vesting orders being quashed, what that may then mean for those who weren't able to claim parcels of land because of the vesting order?
I have no information, but it's something I know the department's looking at. Aidan, are you aware of anything? No. So. Because
obviously we'd be keen that there's very clear communication as soon as possible to those. Thank you.
I think you'll be receiving a letter probably off the back of her earlier, so be prepared for that. Okay, thank you. And next we have William.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In relation to 2026 sustainability payment, I'm sorry, and I better declare an interest in partner in a farm business.
Good man.
To keep myself right on that one. In relation to there's a new area coming in, there'll be an extra, I think it's 40,000 hectares, am I right? What's the extra area been eligible for payment?
In terms of the changes to land eligibility rules?
Yes.
Yeah, in relation to soft features, that will bring in an additional 35,000 hectares of eligible land.
35,000 hectares. Where's the entitlements going to come from for that?
There are no new entitlements under the programme.
How's that going to be claimed on then?
Well, the existing entitlements, again, from the start.
There's so much land in Northern Ireland, you'll have to bring more entitlements, so you're bringing more land in?
No, there are no more entitlements. The same entitlements will carry forward from BPS and
how's that going to be claimed then?
Farmers will still claim on the entitlements they hold. They may not have more eligible land in, but they still will claim on the same entitlements.
The logic in my eyes is there's 35,000 extra hectares. You need entitlements for each hectare. Where's those entitlements going to come from?
But
you can't claim it without it.
No, but one of the driving forces of this was, and George has already alluded to, the consultation that took place in 21. You know, the overwhelming responses to that was a change to the rules for eligible land to make all land eligible apart from hard features, and there was the benefits of that.
I have no issue with that. No, I have no issue with that. But to claim on land, you must have entitlements. There's no extra entitlements been issued. So where are the entitlements going to come from to claim on that land?
I just read there are no additional entitlements.
Well, then this land wasn't claimed on in the past. 35,000 hectares hasn't been claimed on this year's because it was ineligible. If it comes back in, where's the entitlements going to come from for it? How is it going to be claimed on if there's no entitlements?
Farm businesses bringing in extra land will have the option, if entitlements are available for sale or lease, to draw in additional entitlements, but there are no new entitlements being brought forward.
Well, that isn't. I don't know how that rationale works out, because where they're going to come from, the farmer can't get them if they're not there.
The drive was to disincentivize farmers from removing scrub, from removing hedges, facing hedges back, controlling rush. So there was environmental sides of that, because the policy intent, we didn't want to go the route of, that the payments were based on farmers having to take actions to control rush to secure their payments. If the soft features are now eligible, farmers don't have to take actions against those issues. So that makes the land, that's the land's eligible for payment then.
Yes, but there's no entitlement. If you have no entitlement, you have to have an entitlement to claim on each hectare of land. Where does the entitlement come from for that 35,000 hectares?
I think as Aidan's saying, but from the consultation back in 21-22, we were clear that the purpose for the new land eligibility rules was to make it simpler for farmers. More land would come in, but there were no more entitlements, and they would just carry forward into the existing entitlements would carry forward, but normal arrangements for sell or lease would still continue to apply.
Yes, but it was 35,000 extra hectares in Northern Ireland coming into play, and there's no entitlements for them.
No.
How are you going to claim it?
Again, that will be, I suppose, a choice for the farm business to determine what land he or she claims their entitlements on. But there are no new entitlements unless they buy or lease something.
Then a lot of this land can't be claimed on then.
Unless there's entitlements on it.
There's only so much land in Northern Ireland, so the entitlements has all been used at the moment in some land. So it's 35,000 hectares extra coming in. It's not hard to work out. There's no entitlements for that.
But I think I'm right in saying we've more land at the minute than we have entitlements under the existing rules.
There's more land coming in than there's entitlements for.
No,
yeah.
there is more eligible land presently than there are entitlements currently. Is my understanding.
That makes it worse then. It's 35,000 extra hectares coming in. You said there's not enough entitlements for the land that is there at the moment. So that makes the situation even worse. It's something I think needs nailed down. I don't know how you expect 35,000 hectares to be brought, new eligible land to be brought in, but no entitlements more available to claim on that land. It can't be claimed on.
But I think again,
understand where I'm coming from.
Well, I'd like to get my head around this a wee bit too, just because I know Declan's going to come in, but could you just, from my perspective, William knows an awful lot more about this because obviously from the farming background, the additional 35,000 hectares that William's referring to, is the department bringing that into play, or is that through applications? Is that direct new farming land or farming land that has been set aside previously? So if I could just get a picture of how that comes into the jigsaw. Where the ownership lies, because I understand William's point.
There's an eligible.
Yeah.
That land's currently on the department's mapping system, LIPIS. Okay, field parcels. That's how land is recorded. So while you have the field size, you also have the MEA, the maximum eligible area. So under the current rules, ineligible features had to be deducted. So you may have a field was 1 hectare, but the MEA is 0.8. So under these proposals, it was the land's already there. It's already captured on the department's mapping system. The only difference is the MEA changes, the eligible area within the field. So you don't now have to make a deduction for scrub within a field, a deduction for for rush.
For strips.
You can yes.
So it's I'm trying to work the example here. So that part of the proposal is to say increase buffer strips and make them bigger if you beside a water course. But if a part of your land has been set aside previously as not applicable, it can now become potentially applicable. So it's like, because it's not necessarily new land as such, it's land that had been set aside previously, but there's been some quantitative assessment to map those out as areas that previously hadn't been able to be claimed under, but can be claimed under, so it's not new land. But does this compensate then for the things like buffer strips and hedgerows? Is that the purpose of this?
No, but buffer strips are eligible for payment.
No, but it's part of the other plans from DAERA to encourage more sustainable farming. So nothing happens without an impact on other. So if a farmer wants to put in 3 or 7 metre buffer strips, they lose arable land. Ultimately, they get a payment or a subsidy for that. But I know this is a different one.
Bottom line is 35,000 hectares that hasn't been eligible this number of years is now becoming eligible, which I welcome. I have no issue with that. What I'm saying is, there's no more entitlements. How is that going to be claimed on? I don't know, because I haven't got an answer today.
Do you mind if I bring Declan on this one, just at this point?
This is interesting, and I know exactly where William's come from, because I couldn't get my head around this one either. And this was one of the reasons why we argued against the closure of the regional reserve. Because only the way the reason that was the point made that we were specifically talking about young new entrants that time. But this is it. Like, each farmer has a finite number of entitlements per hectare, and you only can use them for whatever land's there. So if new land becomes eligible, you don't have the entitlements to claim on it. So the point William said, that's 35,000 new hectares coming in, and my honest opinion, I think farmers then, like, they can't apply to the regional reserve for new entitlements for this new land. So this is almost like a conversation that we've already had whenever we were debating about the closure of the regional reserve. The department didn't listen to this, and it was brought in an SR in such a way where our hands were tied, where we couldn't pray against it.
Have you any, George, really sort of further
on that one, really, the Young Farmers Regional Reserve were legacy EU schemes. We had no cover for them going forward. The facility to buy and sell entitlements remains, and that will allow for the movement of entitlements around farm businesses. But from the outset, from the consultation that we did on future agricultural policy, we were clear that there were no new entitlements. There'd be no rebasing of entitlements going forward at that time.
Anything else in this one, William, at this point?
I just don't know how the land's going to. There's 35,000 hectares of eligible land coming into eligibility, which I have no issue with. But I'm mesmerised as how that's going to be claimed on if there's no entitlements to claim on it.
Well, by bringing that in, William, it does bring the added, as Aidan has said, around the environment and protecting that land from the environment, that it's not being...
That's all fine, but there's still no entitlements. If a farmer has 20 hectares and he's 20 entitlements and he claims on that, and he's not 10 hectares coming into play, where's he going to get the entitlements for it?
And again, as I've said, I suppose the option is there for him to lease or buy entitlements for that.
In the somewhere else, some small farmer going to be priced out of the market in that regard.
Is there is there a risk? Has there been some sort of mapping done in terms of the where this 35,000 hectares actually is, and which farms, or any quantitative analysis of how many farms it affects, either negatively or positively?
No analysis per se, but it is within the existing land pool. Yeah. The fields that farmers claim. So you have an area of trees in the corner of the field. Those area of trees now become eligible. You have an area scrub in the field, now becomes eligible. Farmer doesn't have to take measures to remove that scrub in order to maximise their payments. They don't have to control rush, be that mechanical, be that with herbicides, pesticides, or whatever. So they're not being driven down that road of having to control issues in the farm in order to maximise their payments under the programme.
Okay, so a picture I'm getting here is, if you draw me a field and it's just 1 hectare, and there's a payment on that, but payments for, say it's 3 hectares and the payments on it for 3 hectares.
But the entitlements.
If the entitlements are there. Mm-hmm. But actually on that, if the legacy one was it could actually be 3.5 hectares because there's a part of that field is rushes and trees. So potentially, is it a paper exercise really then? Because you still will only be able to get the payments because the payments only exist for the 3 hectares, but the eligibility would be 3.5 because the rules now pertain, but you can't actually get a payment for it. But the paper says if the payments existed, you could, but you don't need to farm it. That 0.5 that previously was a paper exercise.
A farm business can activate their payment on more land than they have entitlements for. Okay, and they could always do that. You could always submit your application and you could activate your payments on more land than you had entitlements.
As long as you have it in your
yes,
as long as you have it.
In your thing. So part of the drive for this was, in order of pushing farmers down the road, to make the rules simpler, to reduce the errors that were arising with farmers claiming ineligible land, okay, and being penalised for that in terms of an over-declaration. So that, you know, by bringing in these new eligibility features and making them eligible, we reduce the likelihood of that happening.
Well, in fact, they're not going to get anything extra for it. The farmer's not going to get better because there's no entitlement to claim it.
But you can, those areas that's
the bottom line. There's no other way around it. If you've no more entitlements and there's 35,000 hectares extra coming in, and there's no entitlements for it, you can't get payments. The other issue I see is, and excuse me, of course, entitlement window for transfer of entitlements next year is still very tight. With all those changes, the window now need to be longer to allow for entitlement and trading.
Do you want to pick that one up, Lorna?
Yeah, entitlements can be traded throughout the year, but they are actually recorded during that period of time from the 2nd, usually from the 2nd of March to the 15th of May, but they actually can do that as a process throughout the year.
You can't do it online throughout the year, can you?
But they can't do it online until the 2nd.
That's what I mean. There's only about a 6-week period, isn't there?
2nd of March to the 15th of May.
At the risk of just ending this one nearly too, but I think it's important, the 35,000 hectares is all of it subject to condition and rule, like rushes, trees, or you used an acronym earlier on to describe what would be a blockage to a farming activity maybe in that space. But certainly the analogy of trees and rushes and stuff, that 35,000, if you said it's not new land, no. It's within the portfolios and within the curtilage of existing farms at the moment, but farmers haven't been able to access a payment for it.
They weren't able to get payments for that land.
Because of rushes, trees or whatever, but those conditions are now
there's no entitlements issued for that land because it was ineligible. Now it's going to be eligible and still no entitlements for it. So the entitlement,
as far as you're saying, entitlement exists, but the rules didn't permit you to get it, to get the money for it, or is William correct?
No. Entitlements don't exist. If entitlements existed and the department had them, there would be variation, and now if that was the case.
I'm not sure what you're asking, Rob. I think
so I was getting a bit of a picture from Aidan was painting a picture of.
So I understand now where you're coming from. They can claim it as eligible land, but they're not get a payment unless of entitlements.
Yes, that's right.
So they'll not get a payment. There's no point. There's no big advantage of claiming it, but they'll have to claim it, I suppose.
But there is an advantage in claiming it because people are being penalised with over-declarations. So the farm businesses now don't have to take measures to control the rush.
There's not too many people who would have been penalised for over-declarations.
Maybe not now, but there was previously.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No, listen, I haven't got a satisfactory answer, but I'll leave it at that.
Can I just ask one?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
I'm just trying to get my head around. Is this then a factory to disincentivise farmers to engage in, I don't know what you call it, but around a part of what's called tapping, where you would mow rushes, for example? Is this changed to disincentivise that?
It's disincentivise for mowing rushes, spraying rushes, particularly spraying rushes in relation to issues with water quality. Yeah. Removing scrub, because
She said you have a certain number of entitlements.
Yes.
To activate payment in that, you need 1 eligible hectare. Okay, and sometimes farmers fell foul of that because they didn't have sufficient eligible hectares because of those ineligible features. The farm businesses then had to take measures to counteract that or remove them. So by bringing more land in, they don't have to do that because the rush is eligible, scrub's eligible, and they can use that area, which was previously ineligible now, to activate the payments.
Yes. It brings possibly some of the smaller farmers, smaller farm scales into play. Probably would have been more applicable with the 5 hectare rule, but with the 3 hectares, even a small farm would have fell foul. I think I'm getting a clearer picture.
Entitlements all were used in Northern Ireland. If you didn't use your entitlements for 2 years, they're confiscated. So entitlements at the moment are being used. Okay. So all entitlements in Northern Ireland are being used, or else they're confiscated. So it has to leave a shortage of entitlements. There's 35,000 hectares coming into play. I would have thought.
You want to come in now, Aidan? Or?
Well, just on the point, as George said, there was no basin of entitlements from the very start. You know, there was a finite number of entitlements. That hasn't changed.
But the farmers that claim this 35,000 hectares now extra, there's no benefit to them. They're not going to, unless they have an entitlement, they can't get money on it.
What happens if a farmer has so much, if there comes a few more hectares in now that he can claim for, in a sense, is on the system, but he only still applies for the number of hectares that he has entitlements for and doesn't claim this other on the thing? Is there any penalty there?
Well, the farm businesses declare all land associated with the business, you know, and all the land would be subject to previously cross compliance or going forward farm sustainability payments. Sorry, farm
The
sustainability
farmer,
standards.
he's going to have to put all his ground on whether or not he's got entitlements for them or not. He's going to have to put all the ground. If he doesn't put all the ground in, then is he going to be penalised because he didn't put all the ground in?
You asked the question of penalise, you know, the farmer can put all the land on, so you can activate your entitlements on more eligible land than you have entitlements for, and that gives you a safety net. Should you be subject to inspection, should there be an over declaration, or should some other issue arise?
Yeah, but that's still not answering the question. If there comes more ground in that's now entitled to be claimed for, but he doesn't put that on because he only has entitlements for, say, for example, 20 hectares, but he has another 5 that come in, and he doesn't put that on, he just claims for the 20 hectares and just puts on the 20 hectares of land on the thing. Is he penalised for what he doesn't put on?
We can only go with what's on the claim. We don't hold records of land ownership.
Okay.
What the farm business declares in their application, they're declaring that's the land associated with their farm business. We don't have any other information.
In the interest of just keeping this on not just necessarily this subject, could I ask and bring this part to a conclusion if people are, if we have members are minded, that we, on the specific topic and issue, could we get a bit of a written briefing just in terms of response to this, just taking on board some of the queries and questions, and I would love to get a much, I think I've got a clearer picture, but I want confidence that the picture that I've got going on up here is the accurate one going forward, because I think it is a very important matter and something that patently needs to be understood, because there is a change in the scheme here. Williams raised a legitimate concern, I think, but I'm getting a picture that this actually might be, and I don't want to get too excited, that it might be a decent change, might be a good one. Don't be making a habit of it, the department, like making good changes, but I'd be keen if it was. We could be able to evidence that, and if it's not, obviously you'll get some pushback from the committee, and just about so
Mr. Chairman, I have no issue with the changes.
Yeah.
That's not my issue.
Just want an explanation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Patsy.
Thanks very much for this. So, the main thrust of this is that the main outcome of this, or maybe the sole outcome of this, is that people will not be penalised for claiming, we'll call them a scrog of ground or rushes that they might have done before. There's no financial benefit in this, right, for the farmer to, it's just not going to work out. In other words, the claim he can put it in, and he's just not going to be penalised anymore. That's essentially it.
That's right, and it's protecting that habitat.
You will accept that anybody's penalised a second time after that is pretty much not in charge of their business. But could I just ask then, So we'll take the example of, say, a landowner who has a field down there in Rushes, right? And it's in Rushes because there's a drainage problem. It may well be a drainage problem for the landowner themselves, or it may well be for somebody whose land abuts it or whatever. There isn't any financial incentive for that person to go in and improve that piece of ground because it's not going to be eligible for payment. Is that what I'm getting? Aye.
It is a,
Or it may not be eligible for payment.
I know. Well, just let me take that forward a wee bit because that's interesting. So currently, it may not be eligible for payment, and under what circumstances would or could it be eligible for payment because of this? If there's extra ground being brought in or could fit the bill here, I would be interested to hear if there are circumstances where ground would then become eligible for payment. What are those circumstances?
What we've outlined is that soft features will become eligible. So rush will become eligible, scrub will become eligible.
No, but it's not going to get any extra money
unless
from what you have explained.
Yeah, but well, take another scenario. You have your entitlements. You're
Yes.
using the field to activate those on.
Mm-hmm.
That field now becomes encroached with an eligible rush or an eligible scrub.
Yes.
You're in the situation that you can no longer activate your existing payment using that land.
Yes.
So you either have to go out and take additional land, or you have to take measures to control the ineligible features that are within those fields.
Right. So what's your point then?
The point is that you have no longer to control those ineligible features because they're eligible, and you can receive your maximum payment without having to take adverse actions that are detrimental to the environment.
That's what I'm trying to get to, is if there are instances, which I seem to think that you're hinting at, where people could be financially better off. What I mean, financially better off and gain more income from this scheme as a consequence of what your rationale seems to be taking me. What are those circumstances, and have you any examples you could show us of where that might be the case?
I don't follow the question.
Well, I'm following your rationale. What you're saying is that there could be instances where a field which was prior ineligible that might be then eligible for payment. That's my point.
No. The point that I made, the land that you were farming was part of your farm business, and you were activating your entitlements on.
Yes.
If part of that land become overgrown and scrub,
Yes.
you have to make a deduction from your claim. And what we found was farmers weren't necessarily making those deductions on their claims, so when we completed our checks, the farm business were penalised. What we're saying now is that area scrub within the field is now eligible and is eligible to activate your existing payments.
Yes, to activate your existing payment, but back to the original point then. If it previously was ineligible, is that farmer then entitled to get anything more financially for it?
No,
That's my point.
No. The answer to that is no, because you need one.
Well, that's exactly my point. That's
you need
my
1
question.
hectare of eligible land to activate one entitlement, and that's always, and there's no change to that.
No, I get that, but I just wanted to establish what's the incentive for the farmer then, other than to avoid a penalty if that person was stupid enough to make a repeated mistake in his claim.
The incentive for the farmer is the farmer doesn't have to go out and mow the rush, control the rush by mechanical means, control their heather, burn their heather, spray their rushes. So there's no incentive for them to go out to do that so that they maximise their payments. Because you can only activate on your payments on eligible land.
Oh no, we get that
So
bit, aye.
within that farm business, if you have pockets now of areas of scrub and rush which were previously ineligible, as those encroach, the farmer doesn't have to take any action to mitigate against that. They will.
To my original point. My original point is, as a consequence of this, do you see any landowner being financially better off?
Unless they buy or lease in more entitlements
No,
to claim on that land.
with the same holding that they have.
Yes, the benefit is they'll not be at the expense of taking those mitigation actions.
No,
to secure
sorry.
the payment.
Should it be specific? Financially better off by way of income via DAERA or via DAERA.
Their FSP will remain the same.
Right. No,
with
that's
the
all we're
entitlements
going
that
to
they
know.
have. Yeah.
We got there. So, okay, thank you. Right.
I'm going to permit, because well, he's so
Just
cute
one
when he
second.
smiles at me, and he has promised me it's going to be a little one.
Make a comment. There's 35,000 extra hectares coming in. It will distort the price of entitlements. It'll drive entitlements through the roof, and those who are fit to buy them will buy them, and those are not, and that's what will happen.
There's
I
always
think it
been
should-
trading in
I think
entitlements.
some better way of doing it from the department would have been.
I think what George just said there is right. There's always been trading of entitlements, and that has been driven by market
There's
prices.
35,000 extra hectares coming in, and there's not entitlements for those.
Could I just encourage just a bit of a written brief from Jen to get a better picture, because it was getting clearer, and it's got to be a bit muddy
Is
for me again.
the 35,000 entitlements not been used every year? That'd have to be. If that was the case.
Don't have that figure,
Well,
William,
it
but
wouldn't be, should be confiscated from the farmer if he didn't use them there.
Oh, Robbie.
There's confiscated from, not right? Go on ahead.
Well, Declan, it's just to be. I was just going to say,
Just out of curiosity, and I get what you're saying about this new idea disincentivises farmers to engage in the mowing of rushes, for example. So I suppose financially it would avoid the farmer the cost of mowing or paying somebody to do the mowing. But does the department have any analysis of the 35,000 hectares? Is, how many of those hectares were hectares that were already claimed, but which were mowed to make the land eligible, if you know what I mean? There's some of that. Is there some of that 35,000 hectares completely brand new land that was never claimed on, and there's bound to be some of it that has been claimed on, but was mowed and kept in good agricultural environmental conditions for the purpose of claiming the single farm payment?
There may be fields that were never claimed before, but the majority of this will be within the population of fields that farmers are farming and claiming.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and that's where the vast majority of these soft features will be located. It's within existing fields, and you have a diverse range. From you go from west to east of the ineligible features that you find within land.
I ask for one thing just on the response. Then, if we get a bit of a written response, is looking at the 35,000 hectares. What is the department's anticipated activity on that 35,000 acres? If it is nothing, increased farm activity, or environmental, because obviously it's been brought into the portfolio for a purpose, and I think I understand that. What's the anticipated activity on that 35,000 hectares? If it's not farming, for instance, if it's just leaving it as it is, but that it's a paper exercise for the claims to make it easier and to decrease the unneeded activity that some farmers may undertake.
and the benefits it brings from a biodiversity
Absolutely,
point of view.
that's fair. Okay, members, I'm going to genuinely draw a line under that one, if that's right, because we are going to get a written brief in terms of a specific answer.
Maybe just make a final point, Chair, that
Michelle, you were being so good.
That with so many conditions being placed, there may be plenty of entitlements going around at the end of all of this process. But yeah, thanks very much.
This is one of the best committees for people that have been around this place for a long time. Be all right if it was just me, and I'm only here for 8 months. These guys know this inside out, so I'm genuinely grateful for the members in this. That was a good interrogation. So it was. Members, have you any other questions while you've got them here?
It's ready for another.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was really enjoyable. Thank you. If you could get just as quickly as you can, it would be useful for the committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members. So, yeah, okay. Next thing is agenda item 9, which is the LCM, the Animal Welfare Import of Dogs, Cats, Ferrets Bill. So I'm going to refer you to the LCM report, which starts at page 8 of table papers, Legislative Consent Memorandum, Animal Welfare, Import of Cats, Dogs and Ferrets Bill, page 139. Animal Welfare Bill Explanatory Note starts at page 144. You will recall that we wrote to some stakeholders, and we have received a couple of responses. So we're going to look at those. But in the meantime, members, we had an oral briefing, you remember, from the department last week. So if you're content, we're now going to go into private session to consider the draft report, and then we'll return to public session to note any decisions on the public record. So members, are you agreed to go into private session now to discuss the LCM and the committee report? Yeah. Thank you, members.
Committee Room 21. Sound. 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 Committee Room 21. Sound.
And you'll do all that reading out, not me.
Thank you. Well, thanks, boss. Okay, thank you, members, for that detailed and in-depth discussion about the LCM. So I'm going to note that with the limited time constraints that the committee had, we are content to publish the report. We'll go through it stage by stage, but the committee hasn't come to a consensus, and members are going to take the next few days to consider the report and the details of the LCM further. And the debate will be next week in the chamber. Okay, members. So we've considered the committee's draft report in private session, but for the record, we're going to go through the report section by section, and we're going to take those. And the first one that comes up is powers and membership. Are members agreed with that section? Are there any points of clarification or accuracy? Content? Okay. Thank you, members. Then the next one is list of abbreviations and acronyms used in this report. Are members agreed with that action? Are there any matters that anybody wants to draw my attention to? And accuracy? Okay, thank you, members. Next section is the background paragraphs, which is paragraphs 1 to 8. Are members agreed with that, the background, in terms of accuracy or any points of clarity they need? Okay, content, thank you. Next stage is the committee consideration of legislative consent motion, and that is the first part of that is the committee meeting on the 12th of June, which is paragraphs 9 to 18. Are members content that this is an accurate reflection? Okay, thank you, members. The next one is the committee meeting that was held on 19th of June, paragraphs 19 to 45. Are members content that the summary captures that meeting accurately? Are members content? Thank you. Then the position in other jurisdictions, which is detailed in paragraphs 46 to 48. Members content that they have seen that? Agreed, thank you. Then we reported on the committee meeting on the 26th of June, paragraphs 49 to 60. It's a summary of that meeting on the 26th, that's which is today, yeah, actually. Can you remember that far back? So I'm hoping that you are content with the discussions today and how that's being captured. Okay. In terms of the conclusion, are members agreed that that section is included? Or would you like to add or look at any changes for that? But I've detailed at the start of this session what the committee's position is on that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, the links to appendices is the final part of the report. Are members agreed with this section? Yeah. Okay. Okay, there were no changes noted there, but the clerk and the team will do a final read through, and if there is any inaccuracies, whether that's grammar or spelling, or those will be reported to you guys, and the report will be led with the business committee by close of play tomorrow, 27th of June 2025. Do you wish to see the report again by email before tomorrow for final approval? Members? Yep. Content? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Chair, the only additional thing I will add just is that what you stated at the start there. I'll add that to the conclusion regarding the
so that was
lack of consensus.
Yeah, lack of consensus, but that was really due to time constraints, and there are a number of anomalies within the LCM and its applicability. Yeah, okay. And we'll hear more about that in the debate next week. Okay, members, thank you very much for your help, your endurance with that. Okay, we're going to move through the next items on the agenda, which is agenda item 10, the Agriculture Student Fees Amendment Regulations. Refer you to page 171 of the pack for the SL5 letter, the SR and explanatory memorandum. We received an oral briefing on the SL1 at our meeting on the 5th of June and heard that the Department intends to make this SR to amend the Agriculture Student Fee Regulations 2023, which sets out the level of fees payable for undergraduate and postgraduate higher education courses delivered by DAERA at CAFRE. The Department states that there has been no changes to the SR since the SL1 was submitted to the committee. The SR will be led for the Assembly under the negative resolution procedure and subject to executive approval. It is anticipated that it will come into operation on the 1st of September. Members, we agreed that the Department proceeds to make the SR, so I will now put the question on the SR. That the Committee for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs has considered 2025-112, the Agriculture Student Fee Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2025, and there is no objection to the rules subject to the report of the Examiner of Statute Rules. Are you agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 11, Departmental Written Briefing Consultation on Plastic Pollution Plan for Northern Ireland. It's on page 189 of the pack for the briefing paper. There's also a copy of the draft public consultation at page 194, which at this stage is not for wider circulation as the consultation does not actually launch until July. Members, the PPNI, which contributes to Strategic Outcome 17, which is the reduction of single-use plastics in the Environmental Improvement Plan, will launch for a 12-week public consultation in July. The consultation seeks to gather views to be considered in the development of the final plan, which aims to collate the targets incorporated in the existing policies and strategies identified in the actions activities that will contribute to reducing unnecessary plastic in Northern Ireland. Plans 15 actions ranging from behaviour changing projects, reuse and repair initiatives, the carrier bag levy and the introduction of new legislation such as the Environmental Protection Single-Use Regulations. Following the consultation, the committee will be provided with a summary of the responses. Any comments? Are you content to note? Thank you, members. Okay, correspondence, agenda item 12. So correspondence, member, page 22 of the pack, pages 222 to 225 of the pack, corresponds from the Department dated 16th of June regarding the launch of the noise map viewer. The Environmental Noise Regulations 2006 requires strategic noise maps for road, rail, airport and industry noise are published on the Department's website. To improve accessibility and usability of the maps, they are now on an interactive noise map viewer, an improvement on the previous model. Have you any comments? Are you content to note? Thank you, members. Page 226 to 230 of the pack, the corresponds from the Department to the Committee for the Economy regarding overgrown trees, land reliability. I'm sure your inboxes actually get hammered with us sometimes. Following our current meeting with the Economy Committee on the 4th of June, the Committee wrote to the Department requesting further information in respect of landowners' liability and preventative action measures that there is to adopt to allow intervention by landowners. The response states that the felling of trees are regulated under the Forestry Act 2010. However, this does not apply to tree felling carried out by an electricity undertaker. And that's what they're called, because the tree is so close to proximity to an electric line or electric plant which is kept installed by the electricity undertaker. The response also states that the way leave agreement between the utility provider and the landowner will define maintenance and liability responses for both parties. Members, have you any comments? Are you content to note? Thank you. Next item, pages 231 to 233 of the pact, corresponds from the Department dated the 19th of June regarding the update in the co-design process to develop a new evidence-based rural policy on the independent review of TRIPSI. The Rural Policy Co-Design Oversight Group objectives and membership, the proposed vision, keys, principles, values and behaviours adopted for the remainder of the co-design process, and the objectives and membership of the working groups can be found starting page 234. You recall at the meeting on the 14th of November, we received an oral briefing from the officials of the Rural Affairs Division outlining the Minister's commitment to develop a new rural policy through co-design. Formal co-design process began with the Rural Policy Co-Design Oversight Group's first meeting on the 6th of May. The members of the Supporting Rural Communities, Understanding Rural Communities and Championing Rural Communities Working Group will work throughout the summer to draft rural policy proposals to be presented to the Rural Policy Co-Design Oversight Group, and officials will update the committee on progress following the summer recess. Okay, members, regarding the TRIPSI framework, the Strategic Investment Board has been asked with undertaking their independent review. Officials are continuing to engage with the SIB consultant to ensure that the Department receives the final report as soon as possible, and following completion the committee will be provided with the written briefing. Have any comments to make? You content to note? I'm sure we'll be keen to hear from those co-design partners. Page 241 of the pack, Clerk's memo from the Clerk of the Committee for Infrastructure dated 22 regarding the issues of the wastewater in Belfast Lough. Also on pages 242, 243 of the pack corresponds from the Minister for Infrastructure to the Chair of the Committee for Infrastructure. The response states that the DFI works closely with DAERA, in particular through Living with Water in Belfast plan, which aims to address the issues with relation to the wastewater network in Belfast. Well, hopefully they're working more closely with them than that than they did in the A5. The plan estimated that 1.4 billion investment would be required over 12 years to deliver it. The majority, 1.2 billion, required for upgrades in Northern water infrastructure, around 200 million identified for blue-green drainage infrastructure. However, NI Water's confirmed that its project costs increased by over 50% to 1.9 billion, which has seen the overall plan cost rise to 2.1 billion, which is eye-watering. An affordability review carried out in late 2024 concluded that the Belfast plan still needs to be delivered, but that the original 12-year delivery time frame is no longer viable. That's one of Patsy's gripes, because that always happens. Members, DFI have secured 15 million of transformation funding over the next 4 years to progress a pilot project on nature-based drainage solutions and to address the challenges that are facing NI Water, including wastewater investment, to consult on options for developer contributions and to reduce water flooding and sustainable drainage bill. Any comments you can tend to note? We will almost certainly return to that, guys, I'm sure. I refer to page 244 of the pact, a copy of correspondence to the Minister from the Chair of the Committee for Infrastructure regarding water quality in Northern Ireland rivers and lakes. The Committee has requested the Minister's assessment of the recent published water quality reports for Northern Ireland rivers and lakes and to ascertain whether or not Northern Ireland water is a contributor to the pollution levels as outlined in the reports. Members, any comments you can tend to note? Thank you, members. Pages 245, 247 of the PAG, correspondence from the Department on the 20th of June regarding the Public Consultation Shape and Sustainable Places Programme, SSP, which launched on the 23rd of June for a 9-week period. Refer you to a copy of the public consultation document, including the rural needs and impact assessment, starting page 242. SSP programme is a collaborative regeneration programme led by the Department of Communities, involving the Department for Infrastructure and DAERA, and is a vital major investment programme with a coordinated focus on village, town, city centres. The programme will have DFC, DFI and DAERA each contributing a minimum of £50 million over 10 years for regeneration interventions, with an additional 15 million contributed by local councils. You content to note? Any comments? Agenda item 13 is your forward work plan. Members, it's a page 318 of your pack, and it also provides a map to Blackstone Houston Estates for a visit after the meeting today. Do you agree that the forward work plan is published? Does anyone have any other business? Okay. Date and time of next meeting is 3rd of July at 10 a.m. and we will be meeting at Caffrey Hill Farm at Glenwherry in the Antrim Hills at 10 a.m. Hopefully a map will be provided. Thank you, members. Now adjourned.
Committee Room 21. Sound. 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 Committee Room 21.